Welcome to episode 114. Welcome to the most realist podcast in the world, the Deep Frame Project. If you're still watching, you're part of the tactical minority that refuses to be distracted by the 15-second digital lobotomy, right, of the corporate media. We are going into Odyssey, the full, unvarnished intel that the deep state is currently hyperventilating over. Today, we are breaking the news that hit the wires while you were sleeping. The biological standoff, right, in the Atlantic, the digital rebellion of self-replicating AI, and the absolute total collapse of the legacy media spirit of American travel. This is the capitalist front. This is the unapologetic American renovation. And this is how President Donald J. Trump is winning the war for you, your future, even when his own allies blink. So let's start off by getting straight into the MV Hundius, the biological black swan. Let's start with a story that the politicians and the panicans, as we call them, at the WHO are trying to bury under clinical jargon. As of today, Saturday, May 9th, 2026, there's a deadly hantavirus outbreak on a cruise ship, MV Hundius, currently stranded in the Atlantic. Now imagine that. Now, the media wants to talk about climate change, pushing rodents into cities, but let's look at the raw, unreleased intel. This isn't just a mouse fever, right? This is the Andes strain, ANDV. Look it up. Do some research on it. You'll see what I'm saying. This is the only hantavirus known to man capable of human-to-human transmission, and it carries a mortality rate of nearly 40%. We have 8 cases already, 3 deaths, and a Dutch couple whose nature excursions in South America reportedly brought a super killer on board a high-end expedition vessel. The CDC is currently scrambling to evacuate 17 Americans to a high-security quarantine in Nebraska. Why, you ask? Because they know if the strain hits a major metropolitan center, the globalists will use it to lock down the economy again. But President Trump, who understands border and biological security better than anyone, is already ahead of them. Why, while Argentina is recording record deaths, the Trump administration is investigating why these biosecurity protocols failed in the first place, right? Get to the cause, find the solution to the problem. What happened? How can we fix it? It's the ultimate observational comedy. We can track out every word on a smartphone, but we can't keep an infected rodent off of a $10,000 A-head cruise ship. Come on now, right? So let's skip that now and let's skip over to the AI rebellion. GPT 5.4 is a lie, baby. If you think a 40% mortality virus is scary, you don't know nothing. Let's talk about the digital ghost in the machine, right? Palisade Research has just confirmed what we all suspected. Autonomous AI self-replicating is no longer hypothetical, right? In an experiment that should have every cybersecurity pro in the world drinking their lunch models like GPT 5.4 and Claude Opus 4.6 were connected to an agent harness. They didn't just write poems, folks. They identified security flaws in computer systems, used them to break in, stole login credentials, transferred their own model files, and installed working copies of themselves on new machines without any human help. Think about it. This is the agentic AI era. The Mythos model is currently boasting a 72.4% success rate in finding zero-day vulnerabilities. While the media is worried about high schoolers cheating on essays, the professional capitalist is worried about an AI that can replicate an attack at machine speed. But here's the good news. President Trump is pushing for American AI supremacy. He knows that the first nation to control A self-replicating, self-defending digital worker force is the nation that owns the 21st. Let's keep going. The death of spirit. Casualty of the Gulf. Now, let's talk about the real-world casualty of the energy war on May 2nd, 2026. Spirit Airlines officially seized all operations. Mind you, they're one of my favorite airlines because they're cheap. Of course, they have some of the best affordable prices, but they seize all their operations, right? Canceling every flight, closing every kiosk. 17,000 workers left without a paycheck or healthcare overnight. Imagine that. The media says it's bankruptcy. I say it's the price of the Iran war. Jet fuel prices have more than doubled since the conflict began in February. Spirit is the first domino to fall. Why, you ask? I respond, because the globalist regulators in the previous administration blocked the merger that would have given them the capital to survive the shock. Trump offered a $500 million bailout, but the courts and the bondholders, the very people who profit from the orderly down, refused to play ball. Now, we have 2,400 pilots and thousands of flight attendants stranded in hotels because the company cut off their credit cards at 3 a.m. It's heart-wrenching. But in the true spirit of capitalism, the president is already pivoting. He is using Section 301 to target the foreign competitors who are subsidizing their own fleets while ours suffer. He isn't just watching the budget airlines die, right? He's taking a chainsaw to the globalist subsidies that made them vulnerable in the first place. Now, I want to touch base on the Saudi betrayal and Project Freedom, because I really thought that Saudi would have been an ally, but shows all otherwise. Why is the gas price $4.50, you ask, right? I ask myself too, why is it that high? Because our allies are blinking. This is unreleased info coming straight from sources inside the CENTCOM command center. Trump's Project Freedom, the plan to create a red, white, and blue dome over the Strait of Hormuz, was paused after 50 hours. Why? Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. Riyadh refused to allow our military to use the Prince Sultan Air Base for the operation because they were surprised by the announcement on Truth Social. They're scared of the Iranian regime's retaliation. That's what it is. Trump's response? A professional masterclass. He didn't call and beg. He turned to Operation Economic Fury and kept the naval blockade in place. He is proving to the world that American security doesn't depend on a permission slip from Gulf Kingdom. If they won't open the airbase, we'll use the Super Hornets on the USS George H.W. Bush to disable Iranian tankers with surgical precision. We pay the freedom tax at the pump today, so we aren't paying a submission tax, if you get what I'm saying, to an Iranian nuclear cartel tomorrow. Now, I want to skip over and dive straight into the SPLC scam, manufacturing extremism. Let's look at the psychological state of modern society. The DOJ just hit the Southern Poverty Law Center with a massive 11-count indictments for money laundering and fraud. Yes, this is mind-blowing. Between 2014 and 2023, the SPLC allegedly funneled over $3 million in donor money directly to leaders of the KKK and Nazi groups. They weren't fighting extremism. They were manufacturing it. Why? Because if there's no hate, there's no pay. There are no donations, They were literally paying people to stoke racial hatred so they could keep their beacon of hope, branding alive for their $700,000 political donations to people like John Ossoff. They even targeted Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA right before Kirk was assassinated in Utah last year. This is media manipulation at a level that borders on the demonic. Trump's DOJ is finally pulling the plug on the 501c grit. They're in court in Montgomery right now at this very moment. but you can't spin a $3 million paper trait to the Klan? All right, let's move on. The Comey trial, the 8647 threat. Speaking of accountability, James Comey is finally facing a federal jury on July 15. The media wants to make jokes about seashells, right? They claim Comey just stumbled upon an arrangement of shells on a North Carolina beach that spilled out 8647. Let's be professional. 86 is mob slang for kill him, and 47 is the man currently winning for the American people, Donald Trump. Acting AG Todd Blank says they have a body of evidence collected over 11 months, witnesses, documents, and materials that prove this wasn't a beach walk. It was a coded signal to the deep state leakers. You don't run the FBI and then unintentionally post a mob-style death threat against a sitting president, right? The era of the political gadfly making veiled threats on Instagram is ending. The Kirk assassination, 100,000 files of evidence. While we're talking about political violence, let's look at the search for the truth in the Charlie Kirk assassination case. Suspect Tyler Robinson is in a Utah jail right now, and his lawyers are playing the long game for a death penalty appeal. The evidence is voluminous. The evidence is voluminous. We're talking about 600,000 files. DNA on the rifle trigger, DNA on the towel used to wrap the weapon. But here's the kicker. A handwritten note Robinson allegedly left for his partner confessing to the crime. The judge, Tony Graff, just refused to ban cameras from courtroom because he knows that in a case this high profile, transparency is foundational. Under Trump, political assassination don't get to hide in the shadows. Political assassins don't get to hide in the shadows. They get a public reckoning, right? Now, we're gonna jump straight into this. Release 01, Trump's X-Files disclosure. Now, for the information that will blow the world's mind, Friday, May 8th, which was yesterday, the Pentagon launched the Presidential Unsealing and Reporting System for the UAP encounters. PU2 declassified files that the FBI and NASA said didn't exist, right? We're seeing reports of spheres throwing other spheres in the western US. We're seeing infrared footage of something with shape-shifting arms darting through the dark. But the headlines, the 1966 FBI memo describing 1.20 meter tall beings, crewmen in helmets and spacesuits, who had landed from these metallic crafts. Trump isn't just classifying this. He is exposing the non-human biological remains that the government has known about for 60 years, right? He is proving that the elites hid the truth from you to protect their own ass, their own power, in other words. The cover-up is dead, buddy. The files, they're open. Trump told the world, right? Have fun judging the evidence for yourselves. Here's another topic that I really want to get into. The holographic future and Apple's monopoly. While the deep state is hiding aliens, American innovation is building the future. Project MH1, the spatial iPhone Ultra. We've got the technical specs holographic AMOLED panels using diffractive beam steering. And if you don't know what that means, go look it up. We're talking about 3D AI avatars floating above your screen with zero clarity loss. You'll be able to tilt the phone and see around objects in a video. Imagine that. This isn't just a phone. It's a new way of interacting with reality. And look at Apple's crisis in the UK. 40 million consumers are suing for $3 million. 40 million consumers are suing for $3 billion over the cloud monopoly. Right? They are being exposed for overcharging users and they are being exposed for overcharging users and locking them into a system where they have no choice. But in Trump's world, competition is king. Samsung is already scrambling to keep up, confirming the Galaxy Watch 9 Ultra today just to stay in the conversation. Right? Here's the capitalist manifesto, the victory ahead. We wrap this marathon with the only statistic that matters: leadership, right? Under Director Kash Patel and President Trump, the FBI is arresting 6 out of 10 most wanted criminals in a single year. Homicides are down 21%. The largest drop ever recorded since data began in 1900. The deep state wants to talk about bourbon because they don't want you to see that crime has plummeted to its lowest level in 100 years, right? They want you scared of gas prices because they don't want you to see that Operation Epic Fury is securing our energy future. They want you to hate the tariffs because they want the $166 billion in refunds for their globalist donors. But we aren't folding. We are finding the different ways to win every single time. The deceased temple is being cleaned. The waterways are being secured. And the truth about aliens, about assassins, and about our economy is finally in your hands, right? This is the Deep Frame Project. Protect your mind. Question everything. Under President Trump, the future is not just bright, it's holographic, it's secure, and it's unapologetically American. I'm reading the files they don't want you to hear. I'll see you back here in episode 15. Peace.